Pistol Politics by Robert Howard. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Pistol Politics by Robert Howard. Politics and book learning is bad enough took separate. Together, they're a blight and a curse. Take Yeller Dog, for instance, a mining camp over in the Apache River country, where I was rash enough to take up my abode in onst. Yeller Dog was a decent camp till politics reared its head in our midst and education come slithering after. The whiskey was good and middlin' cheap. The poker and faro games was honest if you watched the dealers clost. 3 or 4 piddlin' fights a night was the usual run, and a man hadn't been shot dead in more'n a week by my reckoning. Then, like my Aunt Tascosa Polk would say, come the deluge. It all begun when 40 Rod Harrigan moved his gamblin' outfit over to Alderville and left our one frame buildin' vacant. And Gooseneck Wilkerson got the idea of turning it into a city hall. Then he said we ought to have a mayor to go with it, and announced hisself as candidate. Naturally, Bull Hawkins, our other leading citizen, come out agin him. The election was sought for April 11. Gooseneck established his campaign headquarters in the Silver Saddle Saloon, and Bull taking up his'n in the Red Tomahawk on t'other side of the street. First thing we knowed, Yeller Dog was in the grip of politics. The campaign got underway, and the casualties was mounting daily as public interest become more and more fatally aroused. And on the afternoon of the 9th, Gooseneck come into his headquarters and says, "We got to make a sweepin' offensive, boys. Bull Hawkins is out-generalin' us. That shootin' match he put on for a prime beef steer yesterday made a big hit with a common herd. He's tryin' to convince Yeller Dog that if elected, he'd purvide the camp with more high-class amusement than I could. Breck Elkins, will you pause in your guzzlin' and listen here a minute? As chief of this here political organization, I demand your attention." "I hear you," I says. "I was to the match, and they barred me on a technicality. Otherwise I would have won the whole steer. It weren't so exciting far as I could see. Only one man got shot." "And he was one of my voters," scowled Gooseneck. "But we got to outshine Bull's efforts to seduce the mob. He's resortin' to low, underhanded tactics by buyin' votes outright. I scorn sech measures. Anyway, I've bought all I'm able to pay for. We got to put on a show which outdazzles his dern shootin' match." "A rodeo, maybe," suggested Mule McGrath. "Or a good dog fight." "Nah," says Gooseneck. "My show will be a symbol of progress and culture. We stages a spellin' match tomorrow night in the city hall. Next mornin', when the polls opens, the voters'll still be so dazzled by the grandeur of our entertainment they'll elect me by a vast majority." "How many men in this here camp can spell good enough to get into a spellin' bee?" says I. "I'm confident they's at least 35 men in this camp which can read and write," says Gooseneck. "That's plenty. But we gotta find somebody to give out the words. It wouldn't look right for me. It'd be beneath my official dignity. Who's educated enough for the job?" "I am," says Jerry Brennan and Bill Garrison simultaneous. Then they showed their teeth at each other. They weren't friends nohow. "Can't but one get the job," asserted Gooseneck. "I tests your ability. Can either one of you spell Constantinople?" "K-O-N," begun Garrison, and Brennan burst into a loud and mocking guffaw. and said something pointed about ignoramuses. "You deleted expletive," says Garrison bloodthirstily. "Gentlemen," squawked Gooseneck, and then ducked as they both went for their guns. They cleared Leather about the same time. When the smoke oozed away, Gooseneck crawled out from under the roulette table and cussed fervently. "Two more reliable voters gone to glory," he raged. "Breckenridge, why didn't you stop 'em?" "'Twarn't none of my business," says I, reaching for another drink, 'cause a stray bullet had knocked my glass out of my hand. "Hey," I addressed the barkeep sternly, "I see you fixin' to chalk up that there spilt drink agin me. Charge it to Jerry Brennan. He spilt it." "Dead men pays no bills," complained the bartender. "Cease them petty squabbles," snarled Gooseneck. "You argies over a glass of liquor when I've just lost two good votes. Drag 'em out, boys," he ordered the other members of the organization, which was emerging from behind the bar and the whiskey barrels where they took refuge when the shooting started. "Damn," says Gooseneck with bitterness. "This here is a deadly lick to my campaign. I not only loses two more votes, but them was the best educated men in camp outside of me. Now who we gonna get to conduct the spelling match?" "Anybody which can read can do it," says Lobo Harrison, a hoss thief with a mean face and an ingrown disposition. He'd go a mile out of his way just to kick a dog. "Even Elkins there could do it." "Yeah, if they was anything to read from," snorted Gooseneck. "But they ain't a line of writing in camp except on whiskey bottles. We got to have a man with a lot of long words in his head. Breckenridge, damn it, just 'cause I told the barkeep to charge your drinks on the campaign expenses ain't no reason for you to freeze onto that bar permanent. Ride over to Alderville and get us an educated man." "How'll he know whether he's educated or not?" sneered Lobo, which seemed to dislike me passionately for some reason or another. "Make him spell Constantinople," says Gooseneck. "He can't go over there," says Soapy Jackson. "The folks has threatened to lynch him for crippling their sheriff." "I didn't cripple their fool sheriff," I says indignantly. "He crippled hisself, falling through a wagon wheel when I give him a kind of push with a rock. How you spell that there Constance Hopel word?" Well, he spelled it 30 or 40 times till I had it memorized. So I rode over to Alderville. When I rode into town, the folks looked at me coldly and bunched up and whispered amongst theirselves. But I paid no attention to 'em. I never seen the deputy sheriff, unless that was him I seen climbing a white oak tree as I hove in sight. I went into the White Eagle saloon and drank me a dram and says to the barkeep, "Who's the best educated man in Alderville?" Says he, "Snake River Murgatroyd, which deals Monty over to the Elite Amusement Palace." So I went over there, and just as I went through the door I happened to remember that Snake River had swore he was going to shoot me on sight next time he seen me, on account of some trouble we'd had over a card game. But such things is too trivial to bother about. I went up to where he was setting dealing Monty, and I says, "Hey." "Place your bet," says he. Then he looked up and said, "You! Expletive deleted!" and reached for his gun. But I got mine out first and shoved the muzzle under his nose. "Spell Constantinople," I tells him. He turned pale and said, "Are you crazy?" "Spell it," I roared, and he says, "Constantinople. What the hell?" "Good," I said, throwing his gun in the corner out of temptation's way. "We wants you to come over to Yeller Dog and give out words at a spelling match." Everybody in the place was holding their breath. Snake River moved his hands nervous like and knocked a jack of diamonds off onto the floor. He stooped like he was going to pick it up, but instead he jerked a bowie out of his boot and tried to stab me in the belly. Well, much as I would have enjoyed shooting him, I noted spiled a spelling match, so merely taken the knife away from him and held him upside down to shake out whatever other weapons he might have hid.